recorded. Are we set?
We are set. Let's go.
That was a question for me.
Go.
Am I set?
Do not answer other people's questions.
I should start addressing myself only. Parnika, are you ready? Yes, we are. I think they have... I don't know. They're just like, we are all clueless. Let's be clueless together.
I think my earlier profession helps me in this. Do you know what I mean? Like I have launched so many YouTube channels and launched so many RJs and trained so much that I'm like, oh, prepare karke jao. Don't harass the poor presenter.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get it.
Hello to everybody watching this episode. Welcome to a freshly brewed episode of MAIL.MINDSTANCE. Today I have a lovely person with me. Somebody I look up to. I have been a huge fan of. So this is a very...
This is where I walk out of the car.
The car's locked.
Oh
You
my
can't.
God, she has child lock.
Yes, the car is child locked. But yes, somebody I look up to. Anindita, Chatterjee, everybody.
Where's the drum roll? Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
How are you today?
I'm very good. I'm a little warm, but I'm very good. And I think we are parked at a very good place in Delhi, in and around central Delhi, which is one of our favorite place in Delhi. So very, very happy to be here to talk about art. I follow your work, and I think all of us who are in the art and wellness space, it's mandatory almost that we collaborate and we support each other.
Yes. I am a huge fan, so I'm gonna fangirl about you throughout the podcast. But can you please tell my audience, your audience, about yourself so that they know beyond?
Right. I'm a mental health counselor and a trauma-informed psychotherapist. I'm a newly minted DMT facilitator, which is dance movement therapy facilitator. I run my own private practice in Delhi NCR, and this is my second career. So I transitioned to the mental health space after 15 years of career in media and communication, and after, of course, a dark night of the soul. People who know, they know. And that's what brings me to this space where I sort of intersect art, communication, and the mental health space.
Yeah. And you know, I would love to know about this because you have been in media, now you're in the space of mental health. And if you look at her work, there is so many references from films, from literature. You know, there is so much of art that you create and you use to communicate to people. So what is your idea of art, or you know, how would you define art for you?
Right. I think, Parnika, for me, art is the panacea or the, remedy to tolerate the inbuilt suffering of life.
Oh.
And it's actually a very healthy way to cope with disappointments, which will come your way in life.
Absolutely.
Right? And creating art, watching art, experiencing art. I think all of this, what it does is that it has helped me answer a lot of existential questions in my life. So whenever I have nowhere to go and no answers can be got, which is a whole lot of life, right? We both can agree. I go to art. And I have rarely been disappointed by art. It brings me to a story. I started learning Kathak thanks to my mother from age 6. And I think way into it, like 10, 11 years into it, one day I didn't want to go to dance class and I didn't want to take my 4th year exams, etc. And she called me and she said, look, right now I know you're in an adolescent phase, you don't want to go to dance class, you would rather hang with your friends, etc. But learn this art only because dance or music, these are some things you can go to when you can go to no one. It'll help you in your lonely moments, it'll save you in many ways. And I think that one concept has stayed with me, that art saves you. And I can tell you, Parnika, that art has saved me 1,000,000 times over. So I think, I remember what Mom said, and I think all of that has come true in many ways. It is my space to learn, reflect, and mostly deal with heartbreaks.
Heartbreaks. Yes.
Why not?
Absolutely. And I relate with that, and I also, like, now that I'm talking and reflecting simultaneously, there have been moments when, if something that maybe I have not created, but I have found on the internet, or I've read someone's work, and it just feels like, oh, this. And this is how, what I was mentioning earlier, that you posted something and it just instantly clicks that, yeah, this is exactly what I was feeling, or this is exactly what I was thinking, and this is somebody else has put it out there. So it also brings this sense of, that there are so many shared experiences.
Yes.
And it may not be same, but it is similar in some ways. But and I would also like to know, how has your connection with art grown over the years, or how has it affected you as a person, and defined you, some learning that you had during this journey that helped you be what you are today?
I think I talk about the third space a lot. It gives when you learn or when you appreciate art, or if art in some ways form of your childhood,
Yeah.
if it has been part of your childhood and your adolescence growing up years, it always remains like the third space, which means there's the self and the person, there's work, because we live in a capitalist structure and we all need to work. But it's like the third space, where we all can go, whether you go with a friend to watch a film, you go with a partner to a music recital, or you go alone to a museum, and spend a Saturday afternoon watching art. It's the third space, which is sort of away from who you need to be, what you need to do. It's really away from that. And it is such a great space to get away from the daily rigmarole of life. So I think because art, growing up in a very traditional Bengali family in India, art was very much part of our family. I mean, that's all thanks to my mother. Also, a lot of my father. I think very early on, I remember in Calcutta, he would take me to watch theatre, and my mother would ensure that I always go for my dance classes. So, and there was always Rabindra Sangeet at home. So I literally don't know a world without music, dance, and theatre. And my parents ensured that they were at my recitals. They turned up for every piece of work I did, created. So I think my journey, a lot of my upbringing has to do with art. When I reflect back, when you asked me this question, it is because of my mother and my father. I have to say that it's led by my mother, this art movement in my house. But both my parents have always encouraged both me and my sister to go learn art. They are always happy. Yeah, sure, go do another workshop, go do another theatre workshop. I remember so many days around this area in SRC, etc. When I was doing plays, my dad would come and drop me. There's a lot of support and encouragement I've got. So art has been part of my upbringing. I literally don't know what life is without it. And even now, it is part of my life and my parenting. So in a way, it's a generational wealth my parents have passed on to me, which I'm hoping to pass on to my child.
That's beautiful. And I love the fact that how you mentioned that music, dance, theatre has always been a part of your life. And usually what happens is that when we talk about art is restricted to painting or drawing or coloring. And this is the first picture that comes to my mind, and which is why I love asking this question, that what does art really mean to you? And when you said that it's a remedy for pain and healing and all of that, and it's so true, because we are, even when we just sit here and look around, there's so much movement happening. There is so much that's happening. The tree is just swinging by, the birds are flying, there are insects around here, the cars in the background are just, moving, people are doing different things. And the moment we just take a second to stop and look around, I feel that there is so many artistic elements that we find. And it just makes us more human, I believe. you
Sure,
know.
sure. Sure. I think art, in many ways, as I keep saying, saves us, heals us, makes us reflect, and makes us pause. Any dance form.
Yeah.
पहले स्थायी होता है, पहले आप खड़े हो जाओ. You know, I remember Didi saying like, पहले शांति से खड़े हो जाओ तुम लोग. You know, so suddenly you pause. You take a stance in Kathak, you pause. Anybody who's painting, sthirta. Sthirta is such a concept which I think we are forgetting thanks to mobile phones and our very
Absolutely. This tech generation that we are in.
tech and life and our own expectations out of life and our need to be productive. So sthirta, no matter what religion, prayer is sthirta. Art forms is sthirta. So mindfulness, while it's a very good word and I'm glad that it's now part of everybody's vocabulary,
Yeah.
art has mindfulness inbuilt in it.
Absolutely.
You cannot indulge, create, express, or even watch art while running around or being frantic. Like even when you're watching a play, you're sitting and you're watching.
Yeah.
So art makes you pause.
It does. It does. But I think, and I would love to know your views on this, that with today's generation, today's generation, man, in today's times, we have little to no attention.
That's all
and
of us.
That's all of us, exactly. And we are just constantly waiting for the next thing to happen. We are constantly, even with all the social media, we're just like zoop, 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 next reel, next reel, next reel. And people have somehow lost that patience. They have lost that connection or relationship with art. So, what do you think? How can people bring it back in their lives, or how can they incorporate it in their lives?
I think we need to allocate time. That is why I think so many workshops happen where they take you out from your daily life and put you in a room and say, okay, now for 2 hours we will be engaging in this workshop.
Yeah.
So when you say how can we pause, I think you have to be intentional about it,
Yeah.
which means allocate time. So if 3 to 4 is your time in the afternoon, then sit with it. Whether you're painting, drawing, watching something, or you're coming to Triveni Kala Academy, or you're coming to one of these central areas to watch something, or you're meeting up a friend to discuss art, intentional taking out time to do that.
Yeah.
I think that is very essential, because if you do not put it in your routine, it will not happen. If you don't schedule that dance class, you're not going.
Yeah.
You're not going. If you do not have a music class on a Saturday morning, you're not going. So somehow you have to schedule time in a week to, whether you learn, you create, or you appreciate, whatever you do with art, you have to put it in your timetable, because otherwise the timetable will take over your life.
Yeah.
Like it does.
True, absolutely. Ananta, do you have an instance or a story of something that you created? As a child, whether it was a dance piece or, an artwork that you did, or a poetry story, something that you created and, it has stayed with you till date.
I think when I was in school, I was in boarding school, and 11th and 12th were tough years for me. And I remember that I used to have a slam book, not a slam book, like, a poetry book or whatever, a copy, a register.
Yeah.
And I used to call it Shadows. And I used to write all kinds of poetry. And I think I was going through a phase. And I still believe that class 11th, 12th year old, 17, 18 kid really needed therapy back then. But then the time access to therapy was next to none in India, etc. So I think at that time, I remember and I was a PCMB student, so between my physics, which I could not tackle, chemistry, hydrocarbons, which I didn't understand, I would actually take time out to write poetry. And I think I filled up the whole register, and I still, every time someone says that how art has helped, I think those 2 years literally creating poetry
Yeah.
Which now I will probably look and say, "Oh, you know what I mean?" When you look at your work from your childhood, you're like, "Oh." But I think that really helped me express myself, understand what was going on. Of course, I didn't have so much vocabulary back then, but whatever I wrote,
Yeah.
I think that is not only, I'm very proud of that 17, 18-year-old who somehow found a very healthy way to cope with what she was going on.
Yeah.
What was going on with her. Of course, now I have a name for it and a vocabulary for it. But without making this about me, I think that time, the way that I coped with it in a healthy way by writing poetry and surviving that phase is something I'm very proud of. And I'm thankful that I had that little pink book which had shadows written, and then I used to handwrite my poetry. So I think, yes, that is something that I often think about as to how I organically found a way to save myself.
Or just writing down those letters. I don't know how and even today when I'm in that phase, these days my favorite phrase is just feel your feelings. I say it to everybody. Feel your feelings and do what you need to.
Okay.
And I think back then, feeling my feelings and then just writing it out as a letter, as a poetry, as a story, anything, was just so
मेरा दिल बैठा जा रहा है कुछ तो बोलो
therapeutic and cathartic in so many ways. When I stopped writing, in during pandemic, because there was so much overwhelm and so much was happening, to not write and then get back to writing, it just felt like, oh, part of me is back and it's just alive again. I don't know if that makes sense, but
Of course it does. I think going back to any form of writing, forming art, creating art, it absolutely makes you feel alive. It is, I think art in some form is the life force within us.
It is.
And yes, so I completely resonate with you. Every time I engage in any form of art, watching a play with a friend, appreciating a piece of art, watching, just some friends get together in someone's living room singing, even that, like the joy is just unparalleled.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I have this question because as people who are working in this sector of mental health and also working with so many art forms in different ways, in today's day and age, we feel that anything and everything that we post is under scrutiny.
Yeah,
right?
It is.
And there is no way we can control how people perceive it, interpret it, and use it. What do you think is important for people who are creating art to understand or know before they get into this and put it out there? Because now everything is like mass media, it is reaching thousands of people at once.
Unfortunately, can you give me an example of what exactly you're asking?
If you talk about movies,
okay,
so many people are watching movies, so many people relate to those movies. I have heard people use movies as a way to justify their actions.
Yes.
Good, bad, doesn't matter. Just they use it to justify themselves, to explain themselves. There are so many times when we use movie references in conversations.
For sure.
अच्छा हमको सिखा रिया है
And I feel that as people who are making these movies, do they realize how much power they have? And how much impact they have on people. And similarly, when we read poetry, let's say, when we are going through a heartbreak, and we read Ghalib, and suddenly we are just like, oh yes, this. So, to put it in better words, that there is some responsibility that comes with creating art and putting it out there. So what are your views on that? What do you think about that responsibility that people should know of, that they hold, whether or not they're aware of it?
All of us who create, who put out stuff, and especially people who are in the mass media business,
Yeah.
the filmmakers, and they have to be responsible.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are quoting from your films, watching your films, and especially in mainstream Bollywood or in regional films, it is very, very important for them to introspect and think through what they are doing.
Yeah. So when I was in my feelings era back in my teenage, and I found these poetry and diaries, and when years later I found it again, I was like, oh, Parnika, what did you do?
You know, it sounds cringe but so cute, no?
Yeah.
Like a 16-year-old writing.
Of course.
When I first saw you
Oh,
outside class 8C.
I was in 8C.
So was I.
I was in 8C.
So was I. So you know what I mean?
Oh, this is my future, guys. I love it.
Oh my god.
Now that we know the importance of art and creating art, reflection, and just introspecting, and also the entire process of creating and consuming art, but with some sense of responsibility. Ananta, I'd like to ask that before we say goodbyes and before we end this, is there something that you would like to say to our lovely audience?
Yes, there's enough evidence out there, please look it up, that the world over there are researches to prove how art can be very, very helpful in your mental health journey, in helping you deal with your mental health challenges, and in overall emotional well-being. Art, movement, all of this.
Yeah.
Not just one form of art, all forms of art. And somatic techniques have a lot of there's a lot of research out there to say how art can actually help you feel better.
Yeah.
There's one thing I will say, that in India especially, and in the Indian subcontinent, I think there's still a lot of stigma about going to a psychologist, about going to a therapist, about going to a psychiatrist. I just want to say that if you are dealing with something, or you're having a challenge and you've been struggling with something, please reach out. And if you yourself have a stigma and you're not being judged for the stigma, well, could be that you're surrounded by people who have that stigma, and that's why that stigma still remains in you. At least reach out for a art class, an art therapist, a dance form, a music. Why I'm saying is that could be the first line of intervention, where when you start creating art or appreciating art, or that creative expression space may actually help you start your inner journey, and also ready you to go to a mental health practitioner to help you deal with your issues.
Absolutely.
Please reach out. Please, I think one of the chief problems now is people are still very hesitant to reach out to a counselor, to a therapist. So I'm saying, if you can't reach out, if you can't text them, if you can't call them, that's okay. Just reach out to an art therapist. There are so many great art therapists in and around Delhi. A lot of my peers work. I'll very happily give all the references. They are meeting at Lodi Garden. They are meeting at, where's that place with a very good cafe?
Sundar Nursery.
Thank you. Yes. There's so many green spaces in Delhi where movement therapists, art therapists, storytellers, poets, they're gathering. Go to that gathering. As your first mental health intervention, if you're not able to pick up the phone on your therapist or on a counselor or go to a psychiatrist, I will still say, as the first line of intervention, just go to these workshops, reach out. It may help you break through the barriers of your own stigma and actually get some help.
Yeah.
That's something I want to say.
On that note, thank you so much, Ananta, for being here. It has been an absolute pleasure to have this conversation with you.
Likewise.
And my fangirling intensity has just...
Can you please open the door? It's very hard to get out.
मुझे अपने घर जाना है.
Stop, no, we're not letting her go. And
please, someone let me out.
नहीं.
She locked it.
We have locked the car now.
Please like, share and subscribe to Mind Stance. ठीक बोला ना?
Absolutely. It is available It is available on all audio streaming platforms, YouTube. Choose your platform that you want to watch, listen to it, and we shall be back soon. Okay, bye.